can talk. I mean, really talk to the locals.
I just stumbled on this.
Choosing to get lost intentionally flips the script entirely. I have experienced this countless times, and it fosters personal growth. And the results are not anxiety, it's liberation.
A memorable day, one that I'll never forget the rest of my life. I love getting lost. Look at this. Looks like a little restaurant and a sneaker store, sneaker cleaning. See, La Petite, you know, if you don't, this is just down an alley. Otherwise you'd never know this was here. Some of the best experiences in travel are not pinned on a map. They're not planned and they don't follow, marks in a recommendation guidebook. The best moments happen when you stop trying to control the journey and you just let the road, or in my case, the mountain, lead you. I learned that lesson in Zhangjiajie National Forest. I was there many years ago. This is in Hunan province in China. Went on a little walkabout there. That place is like walking into another world. Everything's shrouded by fog. And when I was there, it was wintertime, so it was kind of cold and rainy. It's the kind of place that feels untamed, even though it's a very famous national forest. It's the kind of place where getting lost is kind of inevitable. And that's also what happened to me on that trip. It had been raining all day, and it kind of created this soft yet blurry edges to the landscape. I spent the morning hopping between cable cars and buses and walking. But at some point I found myself walking along a narrow path along the ridge of the mountain, away from all the noise and the loudspeakers from the tourists, just to try to find an escape, a little peace and quiet. I had a map that was sold to me by a local vendor, but it was nothing more than like an artistic souvenir type of map. It wasn't really good for navigation. In fact, that map adorned my office for many years afterwards. But the whole time I wasn't really worried. In fact, it was kind of peaceful. Once I got away from the swarms of tourists, it opened up quite a bit. And all I could hear was the wind and the rain hitting the ground. And instead of turning to the map or turning to a book, I just kept on walking, naively unaware that the park, Wuling Yuan National Park, is like 500 square kilometers. The path kind of twisted and turned and went all kinds of directions. It broke off into several forks, and I just took the one that looked the most interesting. What seemed like miles and hours later, I found myself all alone. There was no destination, no goal, just simply movement. The path went up and down these stairs and these steps. For hours I didn't see anybody, and then it slowly started making its way down the mountain into a valley, and again, nobody around. Hours later, very, very tired, I came across a small little village, and in this village had some food vendors, but it was also like an old train station. There was a train that ran down the mountain even further. It looked like a relic, really, but it was an old sightseeing train that I had no idea where it went, but I got on it and it led me somewhere. It was a beautiful train ride. I mean, it led me through the forest, past some beautiful waterfalls and some really dense foliage, until I got down to the bottom. I got off the train, and before me was the most beautiful stream I had ever seen in my life. Later, I found out that it was the famous Golden Whip Stream. It wasn't until I posted the video on YouTube that people told me what it was. But I found this stream. It was crystal clear waters, a beautiful path with these rock, formations, and there wasn't any noise, just the rhythmic flowing of the stream as I walked across these rock pillars and a beautiful kind of walled waterfall. Again, a few tourists here and there, but everyone was silent and reverent. It was completely different than the rest of the touristy parts of the park. I just stumbled on this, and I would never have found it if I didn't explore aimlessly. If I had followed signs or that silly map or turned back
walked back towards the tourist areas, this discovery would not have happened. And that also led me to the big Baoling, I think it's called the Baoling elevator, which is this incredible elevator at the bottom that you take back up to the top to see the famous Avatar Mountains. Again, I probably would never have discovered it if I didn't just keep going. That day, I was reminded that not all who wander are lost, as the famous saying goes. Sometimes we're just making room for discovery. It's also a lesson of how valuable it can be to just let go and let discovery find its own path. In today's world where everything is planned and mapped and optimized, it doesn't leave us very little room to just drift. A memorable day, one that I'll never forget the rest of my life. Getting lost on purpose is one of the best ways to develop your adaptability and your resilience, often referred to as AQ, or the adaptability quotient. Studies in neuroscience suggest that navigating unfamiliar places improves cognitive flexibility and strengthens your memory. Anthropologists have long noted that unstructured exploration is a key trait of a curious and innovative mind. In many ways, navigating without any kind of strict guidance is a skill, and like with any skill, it can be practiced. And there are many ways that you can invite spontaneity and serendipity into not only your travel, but your life. Why getting lost is actually good for your brain. Wandering without a clear destination actively reshapes your brain. When you deliberately place yourself in an unfamiliar area and forego the GPS or the maps that are so familiar to us, your mind transitions into a completely different cognitive state. Neuroscientists describe the phenomenon as activating your wayfinding network. That is the neurosystem that is closely linked to spatial reasoning, memory consolidation, and adaptive problem solving. Research in 2017 found that exposure to novel spaces significantly boosts cognitive flexibility. This just isn't beneficial for explorers. It translates directly into better performances in dynamic, uncertain situations, such as a workplace, a classroom, or even social interactions. Deliberately navigating unfamiliar terrains enhances spatial memory, as the brain continuously creates and revises its mental maps. These cognitive exercises continuously strengthen the hippocampus, which intriguingly is also the part of the brain that is enhanced by mindfulness meditation. In our daily lives in this modern time where we are persistently guided by technology, in fact constrained by technology, myself, very guilty of this. The intentional act of losing oneself not only is beneficial, but essential. It's as if you're working out, but instead of working out your body, you're working out mentally, maintaining neuroplasticity, but also fostering resilience against cognitive decline as we age. By stepping away from digital dependency and embracing uncertainty, we are actively cultivating mindfulness and sharpening our awareness. The brain on autopilot versus the brain in discovery mode. Most of us drift through our daily lives in a sort of autopilot, moving effortlessly through various streets in our neighborhood, wandering aimlessly through the aisles of our local grocery store on a weekly basis, even the automatic rituals of going to get our morning coffee. It's comfortable and it's convenient, and there are places in our lives where this is a good thing. Neuroscience explains this phenomenon very clearly. Our brain prefers habitual pathways to save cognitive energy. Essentially, running on autopilot allows us to multitask without overwhelming our mental reserves, which is a very handy survival tool in our complex and overstimulating modern world. But this comfort comes with a hidden cost, because we often overlook the small beauties and the hidden details in our everyday life. Contrast this with stepping into the unknown, wandering down alleys and streets that are unfamiliar to us, or going for a hike down a trail we've never been to before. Suddenly, our senses snap awake, as if someone flipped a switch in our brains. This heightened activation sharpens our spatial skills and fundamentally enhances our ability to encode vivid memories. A fascinating example of this comes from a study in, I think it was 2006, where they studied London taxi cab drivers. Now, London taxi cab drivers are famous for knowing their streets like the back of their hand. And they don't rely on GPS or maps to get around. You tell them where to go, and they know how to get there. In fact, they know the best and fastest ways to get there. The findings of the study revealed that these taxicab drivers not only have enhanced spatial awareness, but also have larger hippocampal volumes compared to those who rely on technological aids. These anatomical changes were directly tied to their continual navigation through an unpredictable urban landscape. Robust hippocampal function is not just beneficial for our memories, it also acts as a safeguard against cognitive decline and other neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's. In other words, deliberately wandering without a predetermined destination encourages the brain to create new neural connections. And these qualities are very important as we navigate rapidly shifting environments. This is, again, mindfulness in motion. Each step that we take without certainty, without expectation, is an exercise in staying present, and it helps our brains stay nimble and resilient. Consider the differences between your daily commute and wandering down an unknown street in an unknown city while you're traveling abroad. The former is routine and, quite frankly, forgettable, whereas the latter is unforgettable, precisely because uncertainty demands a higher state of situational awareness. This intensified sensory engagement creates multidimensional memories. They're not just rich in visual imagery, but also rich in sight, in smell, in textures, and of course emotions. Your brain will encode these memories more robustly, translating uncertainty into vivid and recoverable memories. There's a special magic to the quiet chaos of uncertainty, especially when we travel. I have experienced this countless times throughout the world, whether it's wandering down market streets in Bangkok or stumbling across Macanese food cafes in Macau. In each of these moments, travel takes me away from this habitual haze of our everyday lives and plunges me deep into a vivid experience. It is a heightened reality where I'm fully awake and genuinely alive. Traveling, at its core, is essentially a mindfulness exercise because it demands all of our attention. It nudges us to see the world with baby's eyes, a beginner's mind, a fresh perspective without preconceptions. Just as mindfulness encourages us to look at life as it is and not what we expect it to be. Research from Harvard psychologist Ellen Langer in 2000 emphasizes that mindfulness is less about meditative mats and more about noticing new things. It's the very idea of fostering curiosity and then engaging with that curiosity. Wandering without a predetermined destination creates this exact mindset. Each unfamiliar street and every hidden doorway connects us with this sparked curiosity. It coaxes us to forget about our past and forget about our future and brings our trust into the now. This heightened sense of presence that is triggered by traveling is what psychologists refer to as embodied cognition. In simplified terms, it's the awareness that arises when we physically engage with our environment surrounding us. It's why street food tastes better when you're standing on the street where you bought it. It's why conversations feel deeper and more engaging when they're with a stranger from a town you've never been to. It's why the scent of the rain-soaked soil in a foreign city lingers vividly for years later. Instead of seeing travel as places for you to check off or take a picture to share with your friends on Facebook, we start actively appreciating it as a series of moments to savor. And in turn, we are training ourselves to find joy in ambiguity, the wonder in the small details, and the beauty of unpredictability. Our best moments of our lives happen precisely when we are not expecting them to, when we didn't see it coming. And perhaps the richest journeys of our lives happen when we allow ourselves to be lost, because in our heads we know and we trust full well that this is where we need to be right now. Breaking out of the comfort zone. Modern life loves predictability. We actively set alarms, we cultivate our calendars as if chaos is our mortal enemy. And of course, structure keeps things nice and tidy. And that can be a good thing sometimes, but also sometimes tidiness can be overrated. Think about it. If you've mapped out your entire travel itinerary down to the afternoon, the hour, even the minute, you leave yourself no room for surprise. It's like watching a movie review on YouTube or reading a movie review that talks about the spoilers before you see the movie. Yes, the journey is still a lot of fun, but you've lost the thrill of the discovery. Choosing to get lost intentionally flips the script entirely. Instead of viewing uncertainty as something to be avoided, you actually embrace it as a friend, albeit sometimes a slightly mischievous friend. And trust me, once you stop white-knuckling your itineraries as you travel, curiosity finds its way in and takes over. You might start asking yourself, oh, what's down that street? What is that enticing smell coming from around the corner? Suddenly, you're less concerned about arriving somewhere and you're more invested in experiencing everything along the way. It's common that psychologists highlight that embracing uncertainty heightens your emotional intelligence, and it fosters personal growth. And the results are not anxiety, it's liberation. You discover that discomfort quickly turns into adventure. Now, that's not to say that everything will work out and everything will turn into a story that you'll be telling for years at your local watering hole. There are many walkabout fails, but even our walkabout fails can turn into amazing stories themselves. Serendipity and unexpected connections. Sometimes life's greatest treasures come as disguised as inconveniences. It's like missing the last ferry when you're on an island and you discover a bonfire on the beach and you end up spending a couple of hours chatting with the locals. Or if it starts to rain and you dart inside of a doorway of some random bookstore only to find a life-changing book on the shelf that you'll remember forever. Moments like this are not planned. They merely expose themselves when we have the willingness to allow the unplanned to unfold naturally. True serendipity thrives when we relinquish control and trust in chance. So be willing to say yes to whatever or whomever might cross your path. It's the acknowledgement of the tiny signals that life gives us. It's the acknowledgement of a stranger's smile. It's the listening and hearing of laughter coming from a restaurant as you pass by it. It could even be a peculiar advertisement or a sign that catches your eyes. Similarly, I remember one time I was walking down the street in Xiaolan, which is a small town on the north side of Zhongshan. It's an area and a time that I didn't fully understand. I didn't understand the signs. I'm still learning the language. And out of nowhere came this street parade. Then the locals were celebrating something. I later found out it was the Chrysanthemum Festival that they had every year. I had no idea that this was a thing. But rather than try to stick to an itinerary and a schedule, I sat on the side of the road and watched it go by, and I learned something very valuable about the local culture, all thanks to my willingness to just let it happen. I later had the realization that this is one of the best things about living in that town for so many years. These serendipitous connections, these spontaneous moments at the intersection of our lives and the lives of others, are continuous reminders about how rich and interconnected our world really is, and how simply letting go, even just a little bit and for a short amount of time, can yield amazing results. Travel often hands us very quietly truths that we weren't actively seeking. These insights, once unpacked when we're at home, shape us profoundly. Stepping away from our predictable paths really nurture our skills of improvisation and emotional agility. I think we can all agree that these are things that we could use more of in our everyday lives. Facing unfamiliar circumstances teaches us compassion, not just kindness for other people, but kindness in our own missteps. Life, like travel, never unfolds in a neat little line. Unexpected career shifts, surprise opportunities, new relationships that seem to come out of nowhere, these all teach us to handle our lives with grace. Travel reminds us to trust in our own internal compass, rather than relying on the external landmarks when they become blurred or vanish. It encourages us to see interruptions as opportunities rather than inconveniences. Ultimately, travel cultivates optimism. It's the quiet confidence that no matter what direction we're headed, there is potential value in the experience itself. Even the smallest little detour can become meaningful, and it builds on our layers of resilience and hope. It whispers gently to us that no matter where we are exactly where we need to be. The next time you go traveling, I encourage you, in fact, I challenge you to leave some space in your schedule to allow for discovery. Give yourself permission to get beautifully off track. You remember the story of in Zhangjiajie when I purposely got lost and I didn't look at that little map, and I found a train that took me to the bottom of the canyon, and then I discovered the Golden Whip stream. That experience changed my relationship with exploration. But before you disappear into the nearest forest, you have to be practical. There is an art to getting lost safely, but enjoyably. Think of it as planned spontaneity. There's just enough structure to have reassurance, but not enough that it smothers adventure. So step number one, if you want to try this, is to choose a conveniently unfamiliar zone. Pick a neighborhood, a town, a city that is unknown, but just comfortable enough that you would feel okay getting lost there. Aim for places that are intriguing, but not so isolated that you feel anxiety. It could be as simple as walking down a street in your neighborhood that you have never been before, or walking around the block of a hotel. It's that easy. Couple pro tips: always wander in the daylight. Start early in the morning, that way you have plenty of time to find your way back. If you're walking in the mountains, start going uphill during the day, and in the afternoon come downhill so you don't wear yourself out too quickly. Take note of memorable landmarks, and landmarks aren't just physical. They could be a scent, they could be a sound, a piece of music, anything that will remind you and help you get your bearings. And really talk to the locals. No map or guidebook can genuinely take the place of a local who's lived there their whole lives. Striking up casual conversations with locals not only enriches your wandering, but it also leads to really enriching cultural exchanges. You can ask for hidden spots, their favorite restaurants, or just simply ask them how their day is going. You'll be surprised how often these little interactions open the doors to really authentic experiences. Now, it's normal to feel a little bit of anxiety when you first start wandering aimlessly on your own. But remember, the goal is not to find something specific. The goal is to discover and appreciate whatever it is that you find. Take small, manageable risks. Take small steps. Eat at a local street food vendor that only serves to the locals. Pop into the local bookstore just because. Always carry enough cash, keep emergency numbers handy, and always let at least one person know the general area that you're going to be in. These are standard safety recommendations. But remember, the goal is not recklessly wandering. It's to create a space to experience travel genuinely. Because the moment you embrace getting lost is precisely the moment when you find the stories that you'll be telling for a lifetime.